Hello, it's great to be back with you again for a new run of what we just watched from TV Cream. My name is Graham.
And I'm Ian.
And we're starting with my choice of viewing. Right, Ian, I'm confident that you're not going to know what this show is.
Okay.
I don't think that even when you see the title sequence, potentially even when you see the name of the show, I don't think it's going to mean much to you.
It'll still be a mystery.
But we'll see if you can get a sense of what style of show it is and maybe when it went out.
Okay, yeah.
So say what you see.
It's a bit of animation. Is that thing wearing a chef's hat?
That's the chef's hat.
Climbing up a tower of plates, dinner plates. Chef for a Night is the name of the programme.
Does that mean anything to you?
Not a thing.
And looking at that, when would you think this was made?
Oh, well, it has the feel of the 90s, maybe the early 90s.
Okay, so we're now going to go and watch Chef for a Night. We've just watched an episode of Chef for a Night, which aired on Channel 4 on Wednesday the 29th of April 1998. It actually aired after Brookside and before ER. It was a 6-part series hosted by Roy Ackerman, who was a restaurateur, and he'd also written some restaurant guides. And apparently in his obituaries it says that he never saw any conflict in the fact that he was doing both of those things. What happens in each episode is he meets an amateur who has foodie aspirations, and he kind of hooks them up with a local restaurant where they get to run their own idea of what their restaurant would be for one night. There's no prize at the end, there's no big decision, there's nothing life-changing. It's sort of just like, well, you've always wanted to do it, here's the reality of what it would be like. What did you make of the show?
Well, it's not the sort of programme I think I would ever choose to watch.
Mm-hmm.
It's on a topic that I confess I have no interest in, and it's about a world that is a bit alien to me, not just the world of chefs and cooking, but just the whole culture of fine dining and gourmet nights and that sort of thing. So it's, to me, it had as much impact as sort of watching a programme about, I don't know, the stock exchange,
okay,
or learning a foreign language or something. So it was rather a curious experience.
So, I mean, what genre do you think this show is? How would you describe what it is?
Well, lifestyle, isn't it? Would you put it in a bracket of lifestyle? No. Well,
I'm not sure that it is.
Does cookery belong in lifestyle?
It does. Cookery belongs in that. But is it a cookery show?
Well, there is a brief moment early in the show where we are talked through a recipe.
For his signature dish, Alan places the pine shoots into boiling water. Over the top goes a layer of perforated foil and the skinless breasts of local farmyard chicken.
And a little caption flashes up. Recipes on Foretell, page 319. But apart from that, there's no other information that's given out in the programme about what the dishes are and how to make them. So by that definition, it's not a cookery programme in the style of Delia Smith or Fanny Craddock or whatever.
So it is a weird genre in a way. Is it a game show? Is it a lifestyle show? Because I think it's quite hard to pin down what it is. And do you think that's a failing? Because I think that's one of his successes. It's one of the things I like about it.
Maybe that's because you are naturally interested in this topic. I wasn't, so I was waiting for something else, waiting for a twist, waiting for some consequence. But all that happens is that the programme just ends. We don't know whether he has enjoyed his experience enough to try it again, or whether he went on to become a chef. We're told that he's unemployed and that at the end of the programme he's got a new job the following day doing what he's always been doing. And to me that is a bit unsatisfactory.
So the he you're talking about is a guy called Alan Spedding, and it's Alan and Claire Spedding.
Our dream is to own a temple of gastronomy. A little farmhouse set in the lakes amongst beautiful countryside, lakes, rivers, mountains.
He's an unemployed electrician who trained at Sellafield, and he lives in Cumbria, and he's always had aspirations towards fine dining. And there is a bit where Roy sort of challenges him.
Alan, why not something more modest to start with? Why don't you have a bistro or something like that and then work up to your high temple gastronomy?
I want to go straight for the top, Roy.
Yeah?
I mean, I've been into amateur food for maybe 10 years now, and I think we're about ready to go for something like that.
Yeah.
Do you have any interest or sympathy in the fact that this man has a dream?
No.
No. Why don't you?
I don't find him a very warm and engaging character, I'm afraid. He has an arrogance, which I find a bit off-putting, and that arrogance comes through later on in the way that he treats the staff at the restaurant which he is spending the night. That comes back to bite him, which was satisfactory to see. But maybe that's a failing of the programme. We're not let into his life quite enough, I felt, for me to invest anything in him and hence to get anything back from him at the end.
I think one of the reasons I like these kind of shows is that it's a programme where you have people who are encouraged to talk about their aspirations and their creativity, and they're inspired to, and you get it on MasterChef as well, but I think particularly in this we see he has a vision, doesn't he? And when we see him drawing pictures of his dishes in colouring them in crayon and things like that.
And are you going to serve this in your dream restaurant?
Certainly am. It's never been seen on a restaurant menu that I've seen or in a book, so this is definitely going to be the one.
And I don't think there's room on telly normally for people to kind of come in and go, oh, if I was in charge and this is how I think things should be and this is my creative expression. Is there any validity in what I'm saying? Do you, or again, are you just left cold by this idea of people who have this chance where they can go, oh, if this was me in charge and this is going to be, oh, it's going to just be nice, it's going to be just right.
Tell you what it reminded me of, and that was the show that Esther Rantzen did, The Big Time. I don't think you've ever seen that kind of television before, where an amateur was dropped into a professional context.
Yes.
But in that series, not only was it structured more as from what I remember, as a story, with which they went on a journey and there was an ending to it, but you had celebrities involved along the way who'd drop in and give advice. And these people were more charismatic. I think they were picked obviously because they were slightly more quirky and eccentric.
Yeah.
Whereas here, all that's missing. It's just an ordinary person who has a rather ordinary dream and has a little go at that dream, and then the programme ends and there's no sense of whether the dream has really been realised, either to the satisfaction of them or to you as the viewer. I don't know who this programme would be aimed at in terms of audience. That's something which I was also wondering. What's the demographic that Channel 4 are hoping for here, and why is it even on Channel 4?
Well, I think this is part of the big Channel 4 lifestyle boom, isn't it? Because this hails from the same time where, I mean, Changing Rooms has just moved to BBC One. That's now at its peak. There's a massive lifestyle boom. I think Channel 4 feels it needs to be doing something along those lines. You'll have things like Property Ladder, the Grand Designs also come in. TV Dinners is made by the same company as this, Ricochet. An element of this which is interesting or valid or quite Channel 4, and it's certainly what Ricochet were also doing in TV Dinners, is it's a sort of almost like a TV cookery show but filmed in a verite style. So there's no format points, there's no studio, there's no on-screen graphics, and we have moments in this which are just genuine, I think, documentary moments. So we have Alan in the kitchen and it cuts to a shot outside.
With 40 gourmet diners expecting 6 fine courses, Alan has a big challenge and a long day ahead.
You're not going to get that in MasterChef, where it will suddenly frame this guy's isolation or anxiety. It's not doing the other TV thing of labouring on false deadlines or false urgency. There are stakes here, albeit I realise that unresolved stakes in a way because there's no payoff. But there are quite small stakes, and there's never any attempt to sort of say, well, this is his make or break night. What could Alan's life change? And I quite like the honesty in that. And I think with you watching it and with your assumption about lifestyle shows, you felt a little bit cut adrift that there weren't those bits of architecture that you could hold on to. But do you see anything of an argument that actually I think that's the strength of it?
I take your points, and I can see how when you put it like that, it can appeal, and there is something original there. Now that you've explained a bit more about the context and what else was going on at the time,
it makes sense from that point of view.
I can understand a bit more now, and also I can see how it fits into the way Channel 4 was changing at the end of the decade. And again, maybe this is because I kind of tuned out of Channel 4 at that point. I remember watching a lot of Channel 4 in the early and the mid-90s. I really felt it was a channel for me. And then by the late 90s, something changed, and it lost a bit of personality, a bit of character, quirkiness, which I can see now is to do with the way it was repositioning itself.
Yeah. And it did establish, these are brands, aren't they? This show didn't go on to be a brand. TV Dinners potentially could have been more. That turned into River Cottage, which did become a brand. Certainly Grand Designs is still going. Whether you think it was right or wrong for the channel to do, they could argue it was a successful thing to do.
Yes, and at the time, I guess it was different and it was original, and to that end, they could justify it as part of what they should be doing.
I think it's also interesting they have this moment that before he gets to do his professional service, he actually gets to go and kind of work with a professional chef, a guy called Billy Drabble, at a place called Michael's Nook, which ends in a very melancholic way in that he comes out of service sort of thinking, oh shit.
I think Alan took it pretty bad, that the whole evening really. We got home and he couldn't speak at one point, he was just sort of looking at me, what am I going to do?
There's no kind of pickup from that, though, is there?
Well, my problem with that is that I don't think we saw enough of that particular evening to get the impression that he'd been totally destroyed.
No, I agree with you,
that segment was very short.
Yeah.
And I felt, well, okay, you've told us that it was a dreadful night. Why didn't we see?
We saw him flapping a little bit, didn't we?
Don't boil the froth.
Don't boil it, or it won't froth. Just get it.
Well, I'm not boiling it. How can I boil it?
If you put it on it.
Oh, you want me to keep it on there? Right. Well, you can guarantee I'll make a mess of that.
I think, and I've long felt that there could be a fixed rig TV series just in a professional kitchen in terms of just watching services. You could just put a fixed rig in about 4 professional kitchens overnight.
You'd watch that, would you?
I would watch that because I think there's drama, and when there's things going wrong, you don't see any drama.
No.
You don't. So you don't. When the service starts to get, when he does do his professional service, there's this bit where he's too anxious. You can see he doesn't want to send the starters out because there's a part of his brain knows, and once the starters go, then he's in it, and there's no turning back.
The £50 a head diners are waiting at empty tables.
I don't know why. I don't understand why at the moment.
Sorry, why can't we have the starters out, Chef?
I think there was drama in that, but you don't feel that.
I enjoyed the snarky comments from the chef that was presumably what would have been his number 2, the one who'd come in to help out.
Yeah.
But now there's a delay on the red pepper terrine.
The terrines now should really be halfway through plating because he's got 5 minutes.
3 minutes to go.
Well, he's gone from 5 minutes to 3 minutes now.
Well, there is all this stuff, isn't there, that Alan's shown
I like the
up.
back chat.
That's the arrogance of him, isn't it? In that he's come in, he's an amateur, he's coming in at doing something which he thinks is top flight. He's adding an extra choice, which they don't normally do. And he's assumed that all the prep is going to have been done for him. He's furious that it hasn't been done for him. And then
7 hours in the kitchen and Alan's crew have not had a break.
I finish at 2 and come back at 6.
Normally.
Yeah, well, it's a normal day for me.
Eh?
Normal day for me.
Well, as I say, we'll have to get the prep done, because if the prep's not done...
Well, that's bad organisation on your part, isn't it, don't you think?
On my part.
so you liked that.
Yeah, although when I think about it now, all those complaints are all to do with the fact it's not so much complaints with him, it's more a complaint with the programme. It's as if he's saying, oh, these people have this idea of this programme, I just don't like it. This person just waltzes in here for a day. Do I have to do this?
Yeah.
Why aren't these other people being a bit more helpful and supportive.
Might there be a valid part of it, though, that you might be saying, well, actually, this is part of the experience?
The programme makers should have sorted that beforehand.
You think?
Yes.
So you think that Alan was stitched up a little by the programme makers there?
Maybe.
Maybe, okay. I very much like Roy Eckermann as host. I feel that he is a lugubrious kind of personality, but he's one of these, I suppose he's the kind of host I like on TV in that he also becomes part of the narrative, so that he's the one who starts chivvying Alan to get the starters out.
Alan, why can't we have the starters?
Starters?
Why can't we have the soup?
Because we need to know exactly how many lamb we're going on.
Well, what the hell has that nothing to do with the soup, does it?
Eh?
Doesn't have anything to do with the soup. Why don't you get a starter out, give them something, they're sitting at the table, give them something to do.
Well, then we've got to get going, so...
We want to get going, we're there. It's gone 8.
He's a professional who also happens to be on camera. And I'm surprised that he didn't do more telly. Did you like Roy?
Well, I suppose I did. I was surprised to see him. He's not a person who has a televisual face or appearance.
He's a sort of a St. Bernard
He's got a big, bushy beard, bald head, and he doesn't have the manner of someone who is necessarily at ease with being on television, which was quite refreshing to see. I did enjoy it when he more or less took charge of proceedings towards the end.
Alan, can we start the front row first? Come on.
I'm coming this
Let's
way.
go front row. We start in the back row and no one can reach it.
It was nice to see the lines being blurred a little between presenter and subject. It's almost the case that by having such a sort of a blank personality, he actually emerged from the programme as someone who had the most interest, because everyone else was a little bit sort of off-putting and unlikable, whereas him, by virtue of just being who he was, sort of straight-talking, no nonsense, he emerged with a bit more dignity than everyone else.
What about Alan's wife, Claire?
Flat out.
It's not a race.
It's, no, with conversation, let them talk around the table.
Yeah, when they've got their meal.
Yeah.
Fell behind all of these, I think. More interesting. Yeah. Did you enjoy your stuff?
Lovely. I thought this mousse was excellent. I really enjoyed that. That was fabulous.
It's my favourite, actually.
I felt for her because I thought two things, in that she is doing the front of house side of things and seemed to actually be doing a very good, conscientious job. And also she is someone who is having to kind of supplicate what she wants to do for his dreams. And so I mean, that's just my interpretation. Maybe she's as enthused as he is, but...
Well, that's interesting, because the programme was meant to be about him and the challenges that he was facing, yet she was facing just as much challenges.
Yeah.
Why do you hold it like that? Is it just more comfortable
It's just
with
more
the
comfortable
napkin?
for me. It's more natural for me. Plus, with the napkin, you shouldn't really hold the bottle just with your plain hand, because it can affect, believe it or not, the temperature of the wine through the body heat.
With red wine, yes, or any, yeah.
And with any as well, even the white can warm up when it should be chilled.
And it's like she'd been corralled into his plan, his dream, without any choice. But I suppose by virtue of not being as much to the foreground as him, she also emerged with a bit more dignity, because she kept something back.
We could infer, if we wanted to, that Alan is a monster, couldn't we? Because we see that he does the catering at his dad's working men's club, and he's doing things like
Mortadella, ricotta and chopped capers. Not the normal bill of fare you'd expect to find in a working man's club.
And we see his 11-year-old daughter's birthday party, and for that he's making them try his pine poached chicken with glazed carrots, which doesn't really seem to be...
Tell you what, if I went to a birthday party, if I was 11-year-olds and went to a birthday party and was served that, I would not go home happy. Where are my chips and beans?
That's what you want.
Birthday cake and a little party bag.
And it is a
all
nice...
this fancy stuff.
The girls, I mean, they're around the table, aren't they, holding the knives and forks, singing Spice Girls songs.
Yes.
The race is on to get out of the bottom.
Doing their best to have a good time, and then they get served all this, this posh crap that comes out.
I said, ooh, do you think you are? Do you think you are?
So do you think Dad is just, he's an exhausting presence, always wanting affirmation for his food in every corner of his life and everyone else's life? If you're wondering what Alan Spedding does today, And I sense you're not.
Well, no, but I know you're going to tell me.
I'm going to tell you. What he does today, he's working at Sellafield still as an electrician. He has a food blog under the name of Cumbrian Foodie, and he's moved into food photography. That's his thing now.
So 21 years on from this, his career as a chef has advanced precisely nowhere.
But that's okay, isn't it? It's all right for him to have that as a dream or as a hobby, don't you think?
I think having the same dream in 2019 that you had in 1998, that's not acceptable. Okay, now it's time for my choice of programme. And, Graham, I don't think there's going to be any mystery to this whatsoever.
Okay.
The moment you hear the signature tune, you'll know exactly what it is. So, I guess probably just describe what you're seeing.
Yes.
And any immediate impressions.
I'm seeing a beach. Oh, it's Holiday.
That's it, exactly.
Now, I wonder what year this is going to be. That looks quite
Take a guess.
washed out. I'm going to say early 80s. Holiday 82?
Well, we're about to hear a familiar voice.
For a touring and camping holiday.
That's Cliff, isn't it?
Buying a share of a home in the sun for more of our journey through Travellers Italy. 3 films in this week's Holiday.
That music.
Okay, well, we're going to take a little holiday in the company of Cliff Richardmore, and we'll be back afterwards to talk about it. We've just watched an edition of the Holiday Programme, as it was colloquially called, which was broadcast on Sunday the 22nd of February 1981.
It was just called Holiday, so what year does it get a year appended to it?
I'm not sure, but it certainly had one by the late 80s.
Yeah, Holiday 88.
Yeah, exactly. But for the moment, for the time being, it was just simply Holiday. My first question, Graham, is what does the Holiday Programme sum up for you? But I'm a bit worried that you're not going to be able to give me an answer.
I'm not. I never ever watched it.
Well,
never watched it.
I'm still reeling from this. You mean you never ever saw Holiday?
No, and I mean, when we were discussing it, my memory was that it was a kind of a midweek thing, and you say that's not the case. It's Sunday night.
Always Sunday tea times.
What would it be on? Was it after like the early evening news or something?
It would have been between the costume drama.
Right.
And just before Songs of Praise.
None of those would have drawn us in. That's very strange, because I do remember watching That's Life of a Sunday.
So that was a bit later.
It was much later. So it doesn't mean we weren't watching telly on a Sunday, but maybe we just were having dinner or something. Wasn't allowed until later on.
It was something to watch
after bath time.
Well, it was something to watch while your tea was being made.
Okay,
that's what I.
Well, when's bath time? After Holiday.
Bath time is just before bed.
Okay, so it is bath time is after Holiday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just after Last of Summer Wine.
Okay. Then it's bath time. And then Ian off to bed.
Well,
now.
if you've been good, then you come back downstairs and watch a bit of That's Life or Howard's Way. If you're lucky.
Okay.
But I'm surprised by that, because for me it was very much a regular fixture, and in particular something I always associate with winter, Sunday tea times at winter, which is when it was on, and it was a programme that wasn't really like anything else on television.
No.
Because it brought into your living rooms a touch of the exotic.
And watching that, I get the impression that all the film packages had all been done the previous summer.
It would have been done, yes, exactly. All put in the can, ready and waiting to go, so that come January, Cliff Mitchell-Moore will be back, reliable as ever, behind his desk to bring you the world into your own home. But it brighten those gloomy January evenings.
John Carter began his investigation here in Britain at a development close to Meadfoot Beach, Torquay.
It's a weird mix, though, isn't it? Because it is Cliff Mitchell-Moore, and the whole framing thing is Cliff is at one of his desks, and then we have Anne, and forgive me, the other gentleman's name.
Well, I can't even believe that.
I know. I'm sorry. Who is he?
John Carter.
John Carter. They all have their separate desks.
Let's establish the format of the programme.
Okay.
It's in quite a large studio.
Yeah.
There's lots of beige and brown,
Yes.
and
Panelling.
they're all sitting behind separate desks
Yes.
on raised platforms.
Which shows that this is essentially a consumer show, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no sofas.
And Cliff's first talking point even is prices and offers.
And welcome once more to the holiday programme and to a selection of bargains. When we said at the start of this series that prices were likely to be reduced because holidays would be hard to sell, we didn't realise how quickly that prediction would be fulfilled.
We're straight in, even before we see any of the films, we're straight into some topical stuff.
Yeah.
Over the last week or so, the special offers have been coming in thick and fast. Pan American Airways have announced that people who book their fly-drive holidays for 2 weeks or more to the United States and Canada can get free car hire for 1 week, as long as they book before the end of March.
This, I think, was very much part of the programme's remit, to be not simply a shop window of stuff from around the world, but reflect what has been happening in this country this week.
Yes.
In terms of the tourist industry, airline companies,
Yes.
Exchange rates, problems with airlines, all these sorts of things.
Yes.
And you're straight into that, and Cliff takes great pleasure in reading out almost like the news headlines, aren't they? Here are the bargains this week.
It is, with freshly photographed brochures and leaflets and things.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
No expense spared.
I found it quite interesting, and I was surprised by the fact that there is a strong editorial voice in this show. And there's a bit in one of Anne's bits where she adds the caveat, "That's what we think." And I thought, I was surprised by that, because I did think it was just going to places, travelogues, and that was it. I didn't realise there was an element of investigation and review.
That was always, yeah. And in fact, right from the start, the programme got into a bit of trouble because of that editorialising, until it had really sort of settled down and established itself as a fixture, a schedule fixture. I think in the early days, it was the industry, the tourist industry, was actually quite upset about the way that a television programme was presuming to editorialise about what was and what wasn't value for money.
When did the show start?
1969.
And so when
Cliff was there from the start.
He was there from the start.
Yes. Cliff, John and Anne, they were the holy trinity of the holiday programme for years.
How does Wish You Were Here factor into that?
Wish You Were Here, with Jim Lloyd in Magaluf and Judith Chalmers in Saint-Tropez.
Well, Wish You Were Here was ITV trying to do something different. They obviously thought it was more proper for them to go a little bit more down market.
Yes.
And
it was more about enjoyment, was it?
Yes, it was. Yeah. And pleasure for the sake of it.
Well, do you wish you were here? I do, to share with Jim Lloyd and myself the champagne launching of our new series.
Their big hook was the fact that their presenter, Judith, was on location.
Okay.
They could afford to fly her out.
Okay.
No sitting behind desks, wearing beige clothes and then sitting in silence in the studio.
Or until the moment where, in a great bit of television vocab, Cliff gets up from his desk and walks across to a panel which has facts on it.
Cliff is the only person of the team who's allowed to walk.
Yeah.
Because he is the main host.
Yes.
And before each of the main filmed reports in this episode, he gets up from his desk and walks over to a panel, a screen, which has a sort of cardboard, well, it's a sort of a slide in front of it. And the slide is showing a map of the location. And as the film begins, the slide is drawn back in a style of blankety blank to reveal the
film
start of the film.
The film nestling behind it, which obviously is... It's a bit of chroma key going on there, and there's
it's nicely done though.
There's a nice little kind of tentative.
It judders,
it sticks, doesn't it? Just before it's able to be revealed. It does add to the charm.
Each direction, the journey takes 24 hours, so your holiday really does have to start on board.
The first of the main reports in this particular episode is Anne Gregg's
Yep.
trip to Sweden.
And which has been prompted by Triangle, is that
Well,
right?
I think so, because at the time that this edition was shown, I think Triangle itself was going out.
She is on it's the Tour Scandinavia?
She actually refers to the programme in her report and
Yeah.
says, here is the ferry.
Yeah.
That is more used to seeing some colourful exploits of
Yes.
Triangle. The very first shot we see of the deck of this ferry
The sun deck.
is the sun deck.
They look
and
like refugees. They're all packed in. Someone's trying to sleep on a bench.
It's not the most appetising of shots. They do not look like they're having a good time.
Yeah.
But this is the first of quite a long sequence on the ferry itself.
Yes.
Because as Anne is clear to make out, if you want to make the most of this trip to Sweden, your holiday begins on the ferry.
One of 2 Tour line ships that ply this route to Sweden, the Tour Scandinavia is definitely in the cruiser class. As well as diversions like a gymnasium and, predictably, a sauna, this liberally stocked little supermarket lies in wait to tempt you with duty-free drink and cigarettes.
She's patrolling the ferry, isn't she? She's looking at all the amenities. Although she isn't always there, is she? She's clearly, sometimes the crew have just gone off and got the footage, and she's dubbing it later on.
The couchette apartments are a tight squeeze, however, and to an extent so are the cabins.
She is our guide.
She is.
It's her voice, and she establishes right from the start that this is her take, and we should pay attention to what she's saying. She's very taken by the fact that when she walks into the duty-free shop, everywhere is carpeted.
Yes, that's a talking point.
We're invited to share her joy, her thrill at seeing these simple treats. But it is quite infectious, her enthusiasm. I find that I find myself trusting what she was saying.
Well, of course one trusts Anne Gregg.
Take it now, believe it. Now it's all we get. Nothing promised for regret.
No, then we'd go to the discotheque.
Oh, yes, okay, yeah.
Where, because we're going to Sweden, the on-board entertainment is provided by an ABBA tribute band. During this segment, we get our first contribution from members of the public.
Yes.
2 women are seated at a table, discussing their stakes.
Well, see, I like that bit because that was a little intimate bit, isn't it, where they're just chit-chatting.
We'll see how the Swedish cook their steaks. Not very well done.
Completely unscripted, I'm sure. And then shortly afterwards, Anne interviews a series of people sitting in the front of their cars just as they've driven off the ferry. It's like she's sort of poking her nose. She's leaning through the window and asking each of them what they thought of the trip.
Did you feel that the journey across was part of your holiday?
Yes, I do. I thoroughly enjoy it. You know, have a lovely meal when you get on board. It sort of eases you gently into the holiday instead of being shoved on an aeroplane and then plonked at an airport. And I think it's lovely.
But that would have made your holiday, wouldn't it? If you think, it's Anne Gregg
from the holiday programme,
and we're going to be on it now. The thing that I like in this, and which we see from all of the contributions from the members of the public, is as soon as they're on camera, they talk as if they're making a deposition, don't they? So they try and talk in this very formal, eloquent, erudite, just getting across the facts sort of a way. That's why I like the 2 ladies and their steak, because that's proper chat. But otherwise, if they're to camera, then they just talk in this very kind of formal way.
Well, as far as I can see, the toilet accommodation is first class here. There's plenty of hot water, there's showers, wash basins, absolutely clean toilets without any rubbish about.
Yes, we see that when we get to a Swedish campsite.
Yes.
And Anne talks to a couple who look like they're being... Yes, they're almost like they're being interviewed. There's been some terrible accident or a murder.
Yes,
and they're having to give evidence.
They're giving
for the
a
authorities.
statement, aren't they? That's what they're doing. It's a statement on their holiday experience.
That people think that when they are being interviewed for television, they have to adopt a kind of persona.
It's a legalese, isn't it, that they talk in?
This is as pleasant a place to pitch your tent as you could hope for. Plenty of space to spread out, away from the other campers.
When we get to this campsite, Anne's editorialising becomes all the more obvious.
Yes.
she gets a little bit poetic. She talks about the rustle of silver birch trees.
Well, there is the thing, and it's a weird balance in this show where sometimes their words, they're trying to evoke things, aren't they? They're trying to make their words take you there sometimes, and then it comes back to this kind of much more consumer-led, also appraising the toilet.
It's worth saying that even the one-star sites, which are often in the wilder, more scenic places, are also very good. They always have drinking water, clean toilets and wash places.
Do you think that she gets that balance right?
Yes, actually,
Yes,
I think she does. Yeah, she is. So there's her. I mean, when that line that you say, it's a slight line, isn't it? And she doesn't fall over it. And then it's not purple. It's not purple prose.
No.
And then she's on to rating and reporting. My problem with this show, and it's not a massive problem, but it did start to get away. It's too specific.
I think you're misunderstanding the point of the programme. The point of the programme is to be very specific, because what they are doing, they're experiencing very particular types of holiday with specific tourism companies, and they want to show you. They're like a series of case studies.
Well, maybe, but you would have to actually then be able to go to a travel agent and say, "Can I have the Anne Gregg package?"
That's exactly the point.
So I want the Tour Scandinavia followed by the
that's what people
moving
did.
to this specific campsite.
They'd go into the following day, the following Monday. They'd go down the local Thomas Cook and say, "Did you see the holiday programme?
Can I have what
last night?"
Anne had?
And they would be expecting
Exactly.
people to do that.
So you would then just go on the holiday and have
What's
the
wrong with
holiday
that?
that Anne has just done.
Yes, that's the point of the programme. I think
but it's not opening up Sweden as a country, is it? It's just opening up one campsite in Sweden as a destination.
But I think for someone who knew nothing at all about Sweden,
yes,
you want to start with someone holding a hand. You want someone to say, "Here is a snapshot of a particular kind of holiday in Sweden which we think is going to appeal to you, and if you don't know anything about this country, here's our recommendation for how to get a little slice of Swedish into your life."
So the idea might be that if you're a timid traveller, there's going to be no surprises for you because Anne has checked it all out.
That's the whole point. They want to take away
Okay.
the element of surprise.
Anne's been there and done it.
So therefore it's good. It's fine for you to do it as well.
Simple pleasures are what the Swedes themselves enjoy. Walking, swimming, canoeing, fishing.
I mean, well, when I'm talking about the fact that she is so insanely specific, and then she makes these huge assumptions, doesn't she, about a whole race, what the Swedes like.
The Swedes are sometimes slow to come across.
Yes, and if you give them the right vibes, then
they let go.
Yeah.
Let's talk briefly about some of the camera work.
Yeah, it begins on a bikinied lady, pulls back wide to a beach.
Yes.
Next shot, water, boat comes across
A boat.
water.
There's something always going on water, isn't
Yeah.
there? A speedboat, preferably.
Yes, yeah. We will have children running towards water, jumping in.
Yes.
Some gambling, as in GAMBOLING.
Oh, yes.
And then, because we're near the end of it, sunset.
Lots of
sunset
sunsets.
over water. They do like... there's a brilliant bit, isn't there, where it's a kind of
There's a slow zoom into a sausage. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, no. Let's get into more detail. That is what I'm talking about. So there's water and something out of focus in the foreground.
You're
And
not sure
think,
what it is.
What's that? And then it resolves, and it's a sausage on a fork. But it is all about what's reflections, isn't it? What's being reflected in the water and.
Oh yeah, it's establishing an atmosphere.
Yeah.
Trying to be evocative. And it does the job.
Yeah.
Next up is That Man,
Yes.
Graham.
Yeah.
Remember his name?
John Carter.
Yes. And he's talking about something which is really interesting and topical.
At one end of the main building, they created a number of top-quality apartments. You pay for the right to occupy one of the apartments for 1 week each year for 80 years.
He's talking about timeshare holidays.
Now, it is fascinating because this is an era before timeshare was synonymous just with rip-off. So it's quite interesting to see consumer
embryonic form.
Yeah,
isn't it?
and it's sort of tackling it at its roots and what the basis of it is. And actually the basis of it is quite an interesting idea, which is that you can buy a room in a place which is going to be yours for 1 week every year. That's fine.
There are several types of apartment to choose from, and if you're after something less expensive, you can go in for the smaller studio type. Now, what does that offer? There's a large sitting area, and each of these settees converts into a bed. The double bedroom is here, and it has a bathroom alongside it.
It gets too specific again because he goes to this place in Torquay.
Yes. Oh, okay.
And he tells you what you could get in this place in Torquay, and the difference between a studio flat or a. I mean, how many of the viewers are then going to go, let's go and get a timeshare in that place in
Probably quite
Torquay?
a few.
Really? Is this what's going on?
Yes.
They're driving. So,
well, how else, Graham, do you illustrate an example of timeshare if you don't show an example of a timeshare?
He's showing an example of a timeshare on a beachfront in a place in Torquay.
Yes.
And why does he have to go into all the amenities?
Because that's what you want to know.
No, what you do is you say, if you were buying a timeshare in Torquay, such and such will get you this. If you're buying a timeshare in Dundee, such and such will get you. That's all you need. You don't need to route around the place in Torquay.
I think
look at the options that there are in Torquay.
I think the sort of nosiness is part of this programme's cachet.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's a bit like Through the Keyhole.
So he's just
look, a dishwasher.
You couldn't hope to rent apartments of this quality for anything like that low price if you did it on a year-to-year basis. A point that was firmly made by one time-sharing client here.
One of the highlights of this report, indeed the whole edition,
it's the best bit,
is a family who John interviews on a cliff top in Torquay about
a timeshare.
A timeshare.
Yeah.
But why not go the whole hog and buy a property outright?
Well, you said to me when we saw this tableau, it's two boys, mum and dad.
Yes.
You said, who's going to talk here? And I said, Dad. And I was right.
Yes.
Dad's the only one. To the point that the cameraman, after a while, just thinks, I'm just going to zoom in on Dad.
There's no point keeping this wide
before that,
shot.
we can see, both sons truculent, pissed off, arms folded.
They've been told to stand there. Yeah. Now, look, don't say anything. Don't open your mouths.
Yeah.
Fold your arms.
Yeah.
Not just the boys who have to stay quiet.
It's Mum. Mum is well.
She's not allowed to say anything. And she looks really angry.
It's a very unhappy scene, isn't it?
It's awful.
This is the manicured and pampered landscape of the golfing world. And across the valley from the Aloha Clubhouse is a development that has timeshare apartments on offer.
There is a little coda to this section where John nips across to Spain.
Yes.
To see another example of a timeshare holiday.
The kitchen equipment includes a washing machine and dishwasher.
Where we see a washing machine and a dishwasher.
Yes.
But I'm afraid it looks very soulless, and I don't know whether this is a problem with the quality of the film or the weather when they were there, but it doesn't look at all appealing.
Well, the funny thing with this is, you're quite right, is that it might be just about the fact that the kind of mobile film cameras, and they can't cope with the light extremes, so all the skies are just white. There's no blue skies at all.
It's very washed out.
Yeah, everything is, and so it's very stark looking.
We move on now from the subject of time sharing to our exploration of Travellers Italy.
The final bit of the programme is different from what we've seen so far.
Yeah.
In that it's a holiday already in progress, and the people on this holiday are.
Well, it's Frank and Nesta Boff.
The old harbour at Desenzano, an ancient town on the southern shores of Lake Garda. Here we took a rest from the Renaissance art of Verona and the like, and picnicked on the prom.
He's very good at these linking turn of phrases. Of course, it was Clive James who spoke about the, do you know what a follow is? I don't know what a follow is. There's a very good one here where Frank talks about the fact that he and Nesta they're resting from Renaissance art. As if, okay, enough now.
So exhausted from looking at these pictures.
I mean, there's been a lot of them now, but
too much.
It's a burden now.
You can have too much of a good thing.
So he said to Nesta, I'm tired now, are you? Let's rest from Renaissance art now for this leg.
We'll do it by just driving around an enormous lake.
Yes.
And
under white skies again.
Bleached, washed out skies. Through a lot of concrete tunnels.
And maybe we'll have a few kind of shaky camera shots of hillside passing by.
Yes.
Sometimes it looks like the camera's kind of tipped up as well.
There's no
roof
sense,
of tunnels.
No sense that we're actually going anywhere.
No.
Just endlessly travelling along. But it's a nice change of tone.
Absolutely.
In that it becomes a bit more conversational.
Yes. And it's experiential as well.
Absolutely.
It's stuff happening to them rather than them doing a tally of things that you can get.
Yep, and we see them stop off at a market.
There is one delightful distraction that we've never been able to resist, thank heaven. and that's a good market. I was brought up in a Shropshire border market town, so it's in the blood, I suppose.
Yes, and Frank admits, and I like these kind of insights, that it's their weakness. They love a market in
And
Nesta.
because he reveals that he grew up in a market town.
Yes, thoroughly enjoys a market.
And he says, if only we were there. It's a nice image to place in the head of the viewer of being there with Frank and Nesta.
He wants us a few times, if we were there.
He would like us to be with him.
But there are other images here that you and I didn't like. We don't want to see Frank Boff in a T-shirt. That's wrong.
He appears in a loose-fitting, rather dishevelled T-shirt.
It's not right. I mean, I would like to think that off camera he is in a T-shirt, but I think whenever he should be wearing a shirt.
Just a buttoned-up shirt?
A buttoned-up shirt. I don't. No, a tie isn't required. Sun hat would be nice, but it's too informal, isn't it?
Nesta's dressed very smartly,
yes,
but Frank isn't.
That's fine.
Frank's letting the side down a bit.
But the next thing that happens is a travesty.
We're planning to make one more overnight stop before we drive out of the mountains to Venice. We're away from Lake Garda now and moving east, looking for a hill village called Asolo.
Oh, is this the village that we don't get to see?
Yes, then Frank... it's one of these things Frank tells us about. He tells us their route to this village. He tells us how tricky it was to find it.
It took some finding, he says.
We don't see any of that. And then... well...
We don't even see them in the village.
Something has gone wrong, hasn't it?
Do you think that they might not even have been there?
Well, no. That's too much, Ian. This is Frank Boff, so I'm willing to accept they were there. Okay. I wonder if, for example... there's a problem with the rushes. Maybe the film, they didn't capture it on film.
A technical
or something.
Problem.
There was a technical problem because Frank is going, well, we've got to, we did go there rather than dropping it from the film. Look, we went there, so we get some kind of long shots, don't they? Which was maybe the establishing shots that they took for this film in this village. So they still got those, but then the next
was lost. It fell in the lake.
So we even get a long shot of the hotel that they stayed in.
Yeah.
We see it from across the valley.
It's a shame, really. It's a big shame.
But he promises another time.
A reminder, by the way, that Frank and Nesta Boff are following routes from Arthur Eperon's book, Travellers Italy. And a reminder, too, about Travellers Britain. If you know of any hotel or restaurant that might be featured in this series of film reports, then write to Travellers Britain, Holiday, BBC Television, London W12 8QT.
The programme ends then with Cliff doing a bit of admin, bit of business.
There's always admin on this, isn't there? Paperwork.
Well, they always need to tell us what the holiday has been.
Yeah.
And also where you can write to for more details.
Yes, yeah.
But that does take up a lot of the time, especially when the report has involved a number of different elements.
Yes. Do you think it was a format point, a genuine format point in this that each of these things, well, there then has to be a little thing that the viewer can then do. So to find out more, do you think that to find out more tag is a kind of a format point?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
I think it adds substance very much.
Yeah.
And well, it's the sort of it's the jumping off point then for the viewer.
Yes.
It's like, okay,
over to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need to acknowledge one of the absolute highlights of the programme, which is the signature tune.
Yeah.
Gordon Giltrap's song, Heart Song.
Which is such an evocation of summer and kind of balmy days and almost nostalgia. I think that whoever spotted that and realised that it worked for the holiday programme, they're a very canny person.
Yes.
It just really does.
Perfect fit.
Yes, there's nothing overtly sunshiny or summer about it, but then when it's matched to the images, the sun coming down and
yes,
it's brilliant.
One of the best examples of a found piece of music.
Yeah.
Taking on a whole new life.
Yeah.
In a different context, because it wasn't written for the programme. It was a hit back in the late 70s. And then subsequently used by the holiday programme.
Yeah.
And in a way, the rise and fall of the holiday programme itself mirrors that of the choice of signature tune, because I think when they replaced Heart Song with something by
Simon May.
Yes. the programme, I think, began to decline, or it certainly started to go off the boil around about that time. Cliff Mitchell-Moore left, that various other people came and went, and there was a period when Frank Boff was the presenter.
Right.
Which I don't think really suited him. I mean, he was he'd left breakfast time, and so it's almost as if the BBC were looking to give him a job. But then he was replaced by Des Lynam.
Oh dear. And it's funny when you say that, because actually Heart Song, it sounds like a heyday, doesn't it? That's when it's almost like an oral version.
It's got
a
a confidence and a swagger.
Yes, it's the best of times.
Of something at the peak of its power.
Yes. It's quite unlikely, but it has happened that we've picked 2 lifestyle shows. Why do you think that lifestyle shows aren't really afforded much kind of weight in televisual terms? People don't ever really talk about what they contribute to TV in the way they might do about drama, documentary, whereas I think I like lifestyle shows, and I get lots of kind of quite easy pleasure from watching things like Escape to the Chateau, for example. Do you think it is that disposability of them, they're of the time and then you move on?
Probably some of that. It's probably to do with the cost. I guess there is a unspoken assumption that a programme that has cost a lot of money to make, a flagship drama, a big Saturday night entertainment, is somehow more worthy because it has had more lavished upon it.
Yeah.
In the same way that a soap opera like Doctors is not considered in the same league as EastEnders.
True. Okay.
Even though they are both soap operas.
Yeah. The thing with lifestyle shows probably is that they're not made with an eye on posterity, are they?
There is an element of here and gone to them, disposable television, and that probably compounds that sense that they don't really count for much in the long run because they've got an inbuilt obsolescence.
Yes, but that's what we like about them, maybe.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad thing at all. You can watch something like this edition of the holiday programme, and it's a fascinating snapshot about the way people went about their lives at this point in time, the things they liked doing, places they went, and the whole world in 1981 looked like this.
And I would argue the same thing is true about Chef for a Night, which is, albeit it's a little more focused, but it's what these people in this part of the UK in 1998 wanted, how they spent their enjoyment time, what they wanted to go out and do, what their aspirations were. That was What We Just Watched, in which we watched Chef for a Night from April 29th, 1998
and Holiday from February the 22nd, 1981.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.